Every era has its ghost.
Clyde was a threat.
Drexler just exploded on the wing.
I'm not saying he wasn't a threat.
A superstar who should have defined it.
The only Achilles Clyde Drexler had that he played in the same era as Michael Jordan.
Clyde Drexler was that ghost.
I was very afraid. Clyde was probably one of my biggest challenges.
And most people don't even realize how unreal he was.
Drexler, yes, and it counts.
I remember playing against Clyde in the NBA Finals. I'm backpedaling, and he's coming down on a break. His knees, like, did he just jump over my head?
You've probably seen the dunks or maybe heard the nickname, Clyde the Glide.
So you got to respect him in all areas of basketball.
He made the game seem effortless.
The ball just said shoot right over my face. Like, how the heck did he see me?
But if you weren't paying close attention, you might have missed the fact that Drexler wasn't just good. Let the people who know the game show you who Clyde Drexler really was.
Portland selects Clyde Drexler, University of Houston.
Drafted before MJ and overshadowed ever since. That was Drexler's story. But talk to the legends, the ones who went toe-to-toe with both of them. Ask the players who saw Drexler up close, who felt that first step, who watched helplessly as he rose floating, not forcing. And they'll tell you something the box scores don't. They'll tell you Drexler was different. And who better to hear from than the man whose shadow Clyde was chasing for his entire career, Michael Jordan himself.
Somewhat of a mirror of being, in a sense. I mean, he's so versatile. He plays offense, he plays defense. He's good with assists, he can score. So you got to respect him in all areas of basketball. I'm just going to try to contain him as much as possible. Try to force him to shoot the outside shot, as most people try to force me to shoot the outside shot, and force him to his weaker hand, which is left. And that's what people do to me. So hopefully it can work against him.
Think about that. The guy was the entire game, offense and defense, shooting
Clyde for three.
and passing.
Behind the back to Michael.
It all made Jordan strategize differently. That's respect carved from real fear. Respect didn't mean Jordan took the comparisons lightly.
We have two great teams led by two superstar players. All eyes will be focused on the matchup of Drexler and Jordan.
Both had outstanding seasons that statistically mirrored each other.
Clyde the Glide says we're the two best in the game, but I'm not getting into a war of words with Mike.
Clyde was a threat. I'm not saying he wasn't a threat. But me being compared to him, I took offense to that.
If the greatest ever saw Drexler as a real challenge, you know Clyde was no ordinary player.
Jordan stripped by Drexler. 3-on-2. Percy. Porter gave it back. Drexler.
And then there's Sam Mitchell, who saw Clyde from a different angle. Someone who lived the game, but played it with a style so smooth, it almost looked effortless.
Going and scoring.
He was just smooth, man. Clyde played the game hard and efficient, but he was so cool the way he played and so smooth, and he made the game seem effortless. And when you watch him, man, everything was just done with ease, but he was a great player. He was a lethal scorer. And at the time, the only Achilles heel Clyde Drexler had that he played in the same era as Michael Jordan. Because during that era, if it wasn't for Michael Jordan, Clyde Drexler would have been known as the best two guard in the East or Western Conference, hands down.
That's the thing about Clyde the Glide. He wasn't just another athlete. He was the perfect storm of unreal athleticism and human vulnerability. At 6'6", he flew through the air like he was defying gravity, nearly matching the star known as Air Jordan in midair magic.
There is Jordan. He's got Paxson and Davis with him. He doesn't need him. 2 with 5:10 to go in the third.
Isaiah Thomas not only faced Clyde Drexler head-on, but saw firsthand what made him truly special.
You know, the thing that made Clyde so special was, his athleticism was off the charts. And, I remember watching him in college when they had the great team, Phi Slamma Jamma, and he came into the NBA dunking, but when you go back and you look at some of his college dunks, you're like, whoa.
But it wasn't just about the dunks or the highlights. It was moments like this one that stuck with Isaiah forever.
And I remember playing against Clyde in the NBA Finals. And I'll never forget, I'm backpedaling, and he's coming down on the break, and I decide to stop, and I'm going to take a charge. And the only thing I saw was his knees like tucking in the air and him jumping over me and dunking.
The glide that you've been asking for.
Dumars took it out of bounds, and I asked him, I said, did he just jump over my head? And Dumars goes, yeah, and Dumars and I are coming up the court, and we're talking to each other about the play that Clyde just made in terms of jumping over my head. And I'm sure everybody else thought that we were talking about, something that was happening, that play that we were getting run around. But, we were definitely talking about, what we had just saw Clyde do. So, again, with his athleticism, his toughness, it was very difficult to play against him or guard him or to stop him. You just tried to contain him.
That's the kind of play that stays burned into your mind forever. The kind that makes you realize Clyde was next level. Tough to guard, impossible to stop.
Score! What a shot by Clyde Drexler.
Then there's Craig Hodges.
And the conversation came up about Clyde Drexler. And MJ said this, and I quote, "Clyde Drexler is just as good as me. He just don't know how to play the game." Do you follow me? And we ain't talking about basketball. And that was the question. What do you mean? You know what the fuck I mean. Point blank.
Clyde had the tools, the athleticism, the smoothness.
The corner lays it up for two and maybe three.
But sometimes, as Hodges points out, it was all the mental side of the game that kept him just a step behind legends like MJ. And yet, that made him human, real, and in some ways, even more compelling. But Clyde's greatness wasn't just about head-to-head battles with Jordan. It was also about how he carried himself. And that's where Jim Jackson steps in with a perspective that hits deep. Jim Jackson remembers Clyde not as a headline-grabbing superstar obsessed with personal glory, but as a pro who always put the team first.
And not at one point can I remember during Clyde's career he was ever pointing to about him. It's about Clyde Drexler. Yes, he eventually won a championship and went to Houston, was a part of that. But he always carried himself in a professional manner, meaning the team was first. So I understand his comments. Even when in the 92 finals, and I would happen to be coming out of college, it was a draft combine in Chicago. I was at, game one or game two. I think it was game one when Michael Jordan had the 6 3-pointers. Even at that time when the media was trying to pit Michael against Clyde, Clyde kind of stayed out of the fray because he understood that in order for Portland to win, it wasn't about he and Michael Jordan going up again. It was about the Trailblazers trying to do what they needed to do to beat the Bulls. So I respect what he's talking about because I teach my kids, my son, it's not about you. Yes, you can be a dynamic individual within a team structure, but understand something. In order to win and win big, you need those other, 8, 9, 10 players that's right alongside of you to ensure that you have the best opportunity to win.
That's the mark of a true leader, knowing that basketball is a team sport and championships are won by the collective, not just a single superstar. Greg Anthony, on the other hand, reminded us just how revolutionary Clyde was in terms of pure skill.
He's going to break out. It's Drexler, turns around, puts it up. It's good! Score the basket!
Clyde was incredible. You just weren't used to seeing guys with that size have that kind of quickness and handle back then. It's commonplace today, but back then that was not the norm. And boy, his comfort with being 6'7" and being able to handle the ball and shoot it and play make and all those things, it was a sight to see.
Think about it. A 6'7" guard moving like a point guard, shooting like a sniper, and running the floor like a gazelle. That blend of speed, size, and skill made Drexler something truly unique, a prototype for the modern NBA wing before anybody knew what that even meant.
As the fans scream for charging, but Sean was right underneath the hoop where you almost
Now, the thing about Clyde is even when defenders thought they had him figured out, he was always one step ahead. Robert Ory recalled one moment that still messes with his mind.
I said, I'm gonna get Clyde stuff because I know he's gonna do that spin with his head down and do that finger roll. Man, I dang near put my arm out of socket trying to swing at it. And the ball just said, shoot, right over my face. Like, how in the heck did he see me? He spent it just a little bit more to get it over me. I was like, come on, man, I'm gonna get it one time.
That's the kind of instinct and court vision that turns normal players into legends.
Clyde beats everybody to the ball. Drexler, but Williams scores, he's fouled and counts.
Clyde wasn't just athletic. He had almost this sixth sense for the game, seeing angles and openings that defenders couldn't even imagine. And it wasn't just about scoring or flashy moves. Eddie Johnson expressed something often overlooked: Clyde's unselfishness.
Clyde doesn't get enough credit for his unselfishness. He could have chalked the ball up a lot, and he didn't. He gave the ball to his teammates. He trusted his teammates. He allowed Terry Porter to actually be a point guard, and I thought enhanced Terry Porter's name and his ability to be seen. But Clyde could have just dominated that team at that particular point in time, like, say, Michael Jordan was dominating the Bulls statistically, like Dominique was dominating Atlanta. Clyde Drexler could have done the same thing, but he decided not to, and it made him an all-around player and a great teammate.
It's this selflessness, this commitment to the team over personal glory that made Clyde not just a star, but a true leader and teammate. When you talk about the fiercest competitors in Clyde Drexler's era, Scottie Pippen's name immediately comes up. A guy who not only played against Clyde, but also saw himself in the man they called the Glide.
It's a 3-on-1. Drexler, yes.
But going head-to-head with Clyde the Glide in the finals was intimidating for Pippen.
I had a chance to play with a guy that, I idolized young, and had a chance to play against Clyde in the finals. And I must say, I was very afraid going into that series, because it was that moment really where Clyde was probably one of my biggest challenges for as a small forward in the game, a guy that played a lot like me, a lot of speed, athleticism, can handle the ball, make plays. So it was a big challenge for me to be able to have to run up against a guy like Clyde. It was a lot of fun, a lot of great memories that I take from playing against that Portland team, especially against Clyde.
Scottie Pippen felt that kind of respect and a little fear, then Clyde was operating on a whole other level.
Drexler and ankle injury that hampered him throughout the early series. Drexler.
Next up, we have Dennis Scott, who reminds us why Clyde wasn't just respected for his skills, but also for the pure athleticism that made fans stop and stare.
You never lose that image in your head of Clyde taking off from the free throw line over Andre Turner of Memphis State and just dunking that thing. You're like, oh my God, did he jump from the three-point line? Is someone really that athletic? And then watching Clyde in his early days in Portland, you were like, Clyde was must-see TV.
So yeah, Clyde Drexler wasn't just another player lost in the Jordan era. He was a legend in his own right, a multi-dimensional force who flew, scored, and led with a style all his own, earning respect from some of the greatest to ever lace them up. The truth is, Clyde's story isn't just about the shadow of a giant. It's about a man who carved his own legacy in the sky. But don't go anywhere just yet. Hit play on this next video where NBA legends break down why Chris Mullin was so unbelievably tough to guard.